Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication, was born in this very day, 6 October 1934. He passed away in 2015, but his legacy continues to live on in many ways, in many places around the world, through the multitude of forms in which nonviolent communication is being practiced. There are more than 750 certified NVC trainers around the globe, and a large number of people that have come across and practice NVC in their homes, their organizations, and their communities. Today, the Romanian NVC community would like to honor the memory of Marshall Rosenberg on his birthday with this special online session. 10 NVC trainer friends from all over the world that met Marshall were invited here today, and they are willing to share some of these encounters. So Manu, please, you have the mic.
Yes, thank you, Lacra, and hello and welcome to everybody. What a great honor to have you all here. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And I would just like to go ahead and go on with the introductions. I would love us to have a round. So a very brief introduction for the beginning. Just kindly ask you to share your name, where you're calling from, and what is your connection to Romania. So if you don't mind, maybe it's easier for us to just, have a go and to name people, if that's okay. And I would like to start with Gundi and Frank. And then.
Hello, my name is Gundi. I'm calling from Germany, and I am connected to Romania because I was born in this country and I spent the first years of my life over there until I was 7. And then I left to Germany with my parents. So I'm very happy to be connected to the Romanian community. It's like coming back to my roots.
And I would like to continue this because this is, of course, my first connection. My second is that my father's families are coming from the Bukovina, which I never met yet, or never been yet, but I would love to go there once. And I also have, since I'm an assessor, I have in the moment 3 candidates from Romania, which I very much enjoy to work with and to support this community.
Yes, thank you so much, Gundi and Frank. Sweet to see you. And then Robert, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Robert. I'm originally from Slovenia, or Yugoslavia originally, which then disintegrated. So my home country is Slovenia, although I've been living for the last 2.5 years temporarily in Israel, and that's where I'm calling from. And my specific experience with Romania was, I have no idea how many years ago, but between 5 and 10 years ago, and I was invited to a NVC gathering or NVC conference for, I think, teachers and educators. And I have very fond memories from them. So that's me.
Thank you, Robert. I think it was 8 years ago. Yeah, long time ago. Yes, and Gina.
Hello, yes, I'm calling from the south coast of England, and connections with Romania, yes. Well, it's a sort of an adventure into my family history, really. My father was born there of a Romanian father and a Spanish mother, and and their family had properties that were taken over. And when I was there in March last year offering a workshop, I got to see thanks to support of some of you, some of those properties, and that was extraordinary. And like Frank, I'm also an assessor, and I also have 3 candidates currently, and we're really looking forward to assessment next year in Romania when we can travel again. And also something about wanting to really support this exciting NVC community. I really see it like that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Gina. So good to have you here on board. Yes, and a person I was lucky enough to meet in Romania, Liv.
Hi, yeah, I'm calling from north of Sweden, where we gradually are getting into the dark winter with no light, still some light, but not as much as I would like. My connection to Romania is, of course, by being invited last year, and I met some of you. But I have another thing that I've been carrying with me for like 37 years, I think, because I learned this quote, "Dar din dar se face rai," from a friend in Stockholm. He was Romanian, but he lived in Stockholm at the time. So "Dar din dar se face rai" is probably my sweetest connection to Romania, because it's, oh, I never forgot it. It's like, it's always there. That's me.
Thank you. Yes, a very sweet metaphor too, giving from the heart. Thank you. And next in my screen here is another person I was lucky enough to meet. Yes, it froze a bit for me. So Deborah?
Oh, yes. Yeah, in 2015, I was invited to go to Romania as an assessor and trainer and join this wonderful team there. And then Mona and Ian have invited me to be part of their team for the last 4 years in the retreat up in Pestero in the mountains. And I just feel really big part of the community there. And so it feels really honored to be with you again on this call. And yeah, and I also remember many years before I even knew them in Romania, I remember Romanian in Austria was dancing, and I was so impressed and so how cheerful and jolly they were of dancing. I said, I want to dance with the Romanians.
Sweet. Thank you, Deborah. And Shauna from the other side of the continent.
Hi, I'm Shona. I'm in Edinburgh, in the centre of Edinburgh, a beautiful, bright, sunny evening here. I'm exploring what my connection is, and it's really about the people that I keep meeting. Like Gina says, the role of assessor kind of gives me this overview, and then I meet people from different places and can see connections being made. And I'm super excited about what happens when I hear what's happening in Romania and how people are working together, coming together. And then this event, it's like another manifestation of building community and growing together. So I'm really enjoying that sense of getting to know people, some people I've met, and also people I haven't met, like Ian and Mona. So that's my connection. People I've met, people I haven't met yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. And finally, the local stars, Ian and Mona. So you can pick the order.
Thank you, Manuela. So I'm Monica Reu. My connection to Romania is very simple. I was born in Romania, raised in Romania, living in Romania, calling from Bucharest. And I've been the president of the Romanian Association for Nonviolent Communication for the past 13 years, and really, really honored to be hosting this event and to have been, yes, to have had many of you in my home. So it's, yeah, wonderful to see you all.
And I'm Ian. I'm married to this wonderful lady here. So that's one of my connections to Romania. I grew up in the south of England. I lived for a number of years in Poland, so I kind of have a connection with Eastern Europe. And my connection specifically with Romania was, I fell in love with the country when I first visited in 1995, so 25 years ago. I just fell in love with the country, the people, and then I fell in love with a very specific Romanian, was Mona, and I've been living here for the last 12 years. So I'm very much deeply rooted into the Romania community here. And I'm delighted to see everyone here.
Yes, and we like having you in our community. Thank you for this round. Just, you know, a bit of knowing each other, of introducing ourselves actually. And now I would like us to, you know, get to the main point of our gathering here. And I will kindly invite you to share one of the memories that you have with Marshall Rosenberg. I have never met Marshall Rosenberg, and for me, it's so exciting to hear stories with him. So whenever I get the chance to, you know, meet somebody or sit with somebody over a drink and, you know, find out about the stories, it's something that is really inspiring. And yeah, so that's my invitation for the next few minutes. And I was thinking of making it organic, so whoever would like to share, feel free to share. I can also name, but I feel like more confident with, you know, giving you the mic to whoever wants to take over, and whoever feels like, you know, sharing a memory and getting Marshall a bit closer to us. So is there anybody who would like to start?
So since we're here in Romania, Manu, I would love to start this. I think I'm also one of the very last ones to have met Marshall. I only met him in 2006, when I think he was getting ready to retire. And there was this kind of last opportunity to have him in Romania. And he visited Moldova and Romania. And on the day he was supposed to come to Romania from Moldova, his flight got cancelled. And we were absolutely desperate, thinking that he wasn't going to make it here. But yes, I got him on the phone, and he said that it's absolutely out of the question that he won't make it. So he hired a car in the Republic of Moldova, in Chisinau, and he was in the back of the car with his wife and 2 huge suitcases. He came all the way to Romania for 8 hours. So an 8-hour drive just to support the community here, because he knew we were at the very beginning. So it just meant the world to me and to us and to my work and to NVC here. And at the end, I shared with him how much this meant for me. And I got this. I don't know if you can see it. If Lăcără showed the picture, you will see Marshall wearing this. So this is my gift from him. And it's something that's so precious to me. There it is, around his neck. Yeah. really, really deeply touched. Thank you.
As we're unmuted, maybe I'll go next. As I said in my introduction, I lived in Poland for a number of years, and that's where I met Marshall in the early days of the Polish community, which is now thriving. And I remember one of his visits. He visited a number of times to work with us and support us. And I remember there was one particular occasion when we were having some conflicts in the community. There were different opinions about how we should be reaching out and sharing NVC, especially in relation to money, which is always a difficult topic, I think, for people to reach agreement on. So he said, look, let's have dinner together and see if I can mediate and help you solve this conflict. The picture that you're seeing there was another occasion, and you'll see me right at the back in the top left-hand corner, standing next to Marshall. It was an IIT in Poland. But so over this dinner, there were about 3 of us who were in conflict with different opinions. And we were all on our best behavior. So because Marshall was there, we were all desperately trying to stick to NVC. So we were naming the observation, the feeling, the need, and making as clear requests as we could. And it was so slow because we were really paying attention to, really listening to each other. And at a certain point, Marshall got really impatient. He said, come on, just cut this NVC bullshit and say what you really think and kind of trust that we can solve it with this kind of level of honesty. And that memory stays with me. It's like the human side. He was very much, for me, very much connected to the reality that we live in. So I just remember this so clearly. Thank you.
I like to go next because what Ian just said connects me to, I'm just kind of overflooded with different kind of memories. And before, of course, I've been thinking which one is the best to tell, blah, blah, blah. But it's really clear now when you talk about this, Ian, that there was one occasion where I was in a group and Marshall was there as well. And I had the experience that I was not belonging there. I had no sense of connection. It's like it felt really cold. People didn't seem to want to hang out with me or have dinner with me or whatever. It's like really like in a strange place. And I was not a trainer at the event, but it felt like I was really outside. And I talked to Marshall about this, and he said, like, I'm getting so strange, vibes. I'm not feeling like people seem to not like at all who I am and what I do and so on. And I kind of openly asked him, so how is it for you to hear this? Like, what would you tell me? Well, yeah, I think you can be pretty, don't know exactly his words, but something like he said, you can be pretty intimidating sometimes. It looks like you're kind of, you got it, you're on top of everything. You look like cool, calm, and collected. And of course, people don't, then come close to you. And I was kind of in a shock because I thought, of course, he would hear me with empathy or, my pain around not feeling connected. But he was just bluntly telling, you're not very accessible. And I was in that shock. And then he said, do you want to hear what I do? And then he told me that he had gotten the same kind of feedback for a long time. Like, for example, coming down for breakfast at residential trainings, he would come and with his big furry eyebrows and kind of taking the food, and he would get feedback, not directly, of course, because he was Marshall, but he would get it like he's not very friendly, this Marshall guy. He's not very open. He's not at all, the NVC. She's just like grumpy. So then Marshall told me, so then I just fake it. So he says, I come down for breakfast, and when I meet someone, I go, good morning. And then I go and I take my breakfast because I like to be, have my breakfast alone, not to interact so much. And then I remember asking him, but doesn't that isn't that kind of inauthentic? Like you kind of pretending that you're saying good morning, but you're actually not very interested. And he said, no, I feel authentically wanting to contribute to people's well-being, that they enjoy that I'm here, that I see them and so on. I don't want to connect with them, but I authentically want that, want them to know that I'm there with and for them. And I don't mind, making a kind of a fake smile if it serves the purpose. So for me, it was the best advice, both the blunt, like, in my face feedback of my own behavior, but also that he was like not so busy with being, nice, but he was busy with supporting people in being there together without him having to interact so much, but doing it in his style, his way. And that's something I always liked with him. I loved his deep empathy, the skills of that, but also his kind of directness in some moments that made, for me, a huge difference. Yeah, so that's the memory that came up for me from that.
I'm happy to go next because I was just now listening to Leave's story. I want to start my timer so I don't go for too long. I was kind of reminded of something and what a connection is. So first I want to say I barely qualify to this meeting. I just met Marshall once. Actually didn't want to come, but then Ian violently forced me into being on this call. So I only have this one experience, and it was an IIT in 2007. I went to that IIT mostly in order to have some personal retreat and time. I went with my camper van. It was in Switzerland, and my mountain bike, and I'll have some free time. I had been a trainer already for almost 20 years before that, so I didn't think I had much to learn. And I actually had this fantasy that Marshall would learn a lot from me, which didn't quite manifest this fantasy itself. But I do remember that, quite quick into the IIT, like after a couple of days, I started to realize, wow, this is profound. And maybe I'll share later why it was so profound. But I started to realize this is not just some sort of a wishy-washy, another communication model, but this is profound, and this guy is for real. And then, after 3-4 days, I wanted to really get it. And I kept asking the same question to Marshall. I kept asking him, like, okay, hang on. So what are you saying, that if somebody speaks, then we should, reflect back first and then do that? I kept asking these questions, like, what is the doctrine you are teaching? Like, give me like 1, 2, 3. And I asked maybe 5 times that same question in different, occasions. And I remember his answer was always the same. He would always like look at me and then say, well, whatever meets your needs. And it was just again and again that. And for first 3 or 4 times, I was like, what the fuck is this? That's not an answer. But then I started to get it. Then I started to get it, that it was actually, me wanting to get to a doctrine and him all the time directing me to my needs, like whatever, like everything is okay if I believe this is going to meet my needs, whatever my needs are. And I remember this profound shift was happening then for the rest of the IIT, and stayed with me. And I think I needed a few months to digest it and to really get it, to really integrate it into my system, that NVC is not a doctrine, it's not a strict way to communicate, but it's a map that helps us navigate between the needs or the longings of life in the field. So that's my story, which was very, very, at least for me personally, very inspiring.
I'm happy to go next. The first time I met Marshall was in 2004, I think, or 5. My wife forced me to go there to meet him, to see, to listen to him. And so we were planning to go there. Our kids were quite small and we left the house, and my mother-in-law was at home. And she said, yeah, go there, but don't give him your house, you know, because you don't know who that guy is coming from the US and telling you what the truth is. And so I went there and I was quite, you know, okay, I'm listening, but not too much. And then at the end of the day, we had the opportunity to go with the organizing team out to have dinner together. And I was sitting in front of him and eating with him. And I was expecting actually that maybe he's just eating nothing or light or something like this, just pure energy. But in fact, he was drinking beer and eating meat and stuff like this. So he was kind of a normal person. That was interesting for me at the first place. And then we were sitting there and talking. And then I asked him, how is it to be a guru? And he was, but this was not offensive. It was really coming out of interest, because I thought if there is somebody in this world who is a guru, it's him, because, you know, that's how my idea was of a guru. And he became quite sad about this question. And he told me that he doesn't want to be a guru. That's what people make out of him. And so he explained me a bit of what he's doing and why he's doing it, and what are his actually reasons for it. And so that was quite touching. And the next day, the workshop continued, and when he saw me in the morning, he asked me to come to the stage, and then he showed me pictures of families of children from all over the world that families sent him, and explained how much it influenced their family life and how grateful he was. And he said that is really the reason why he's doing this, to bring NVC to people, to children. And that touched me so much in my heart, because this is so much connected to my longing too. So, mucho más.
No, I go next. So my story is from the same event, and it was in Munich, and it was a huge church, and there was a stage in front, and he was sitting on the stage with so many people, and our children were very little. They were like 2 and 5, something like that. And they had painted picture Marshall. And then in the break, there was a way in the middle of the church, and then Marshall was sitting in front, and I don't even understand why he never made a break. He never had a break, because in the break, the people were standing in line waiting to ask him personal questions, and he would answer them all the way through the break. And then my children were like standing in line, and they were very little, and they were very patient and waiting and waiting. And when they finally got up there, they gave him the pictures that they draw. And then Marshall, he used to have a small bag with him, and very easy one, you know, the ones that that YouTube bags that you, and then he would open it, and there was his ears, his giraffe ears in it, and the puppet, yeah, genau. And then and another folder with pictures that children gave him. So this is all that he carried with him. The pictures that children gave to him, and yeah, his most important materials. And that touched me very deeply. Yeah. It's Klaus.
Okay, I have a story. I have a lot of stories, and like Liv, I was wondering which one, but I'll go with the touching one because of the moment following you, Gundi. Marshall certified me in 1996. And in 1997, he invited me to be a trainer on the IIT in Denmark, which of course was a huge honor for me. I wasn't ready. He shouldn't have invited me, but I went anyway. And that's when I really learned. And it was at the end of that IIT, I felt I was ready to be a certified trainer. And I remember at the end, I was sitting with him in the garden in this bench. And I can really go back there in the moment. And I was very, emotional and touched. And it was such a big experience for me. And I was thanking him, celebrating all that I'd learned. And he was celebrating my contribution and our connection. And he said he wanted me to know that if he didn't invite me again to be an IIT trainer, it wasn't that he didn't want to work with me. It was that there were so many other people who wanted to. And so I reflected that back to him to check, that I'd understood and that, well, that's what we do. And he was so touched with that. And we sat on the bench and we were holding hands and we were just both very touched in that moment. And I guess it was probably one of my highlight moments with Marshall. And I can feel it now. It's still very emotional as I remember that. And a special memory like that was important to me over the years, when I had other interactions that weren't so easy and weren't so fun and or weren't so touching. Then I could always go back to that one. Yeah.
Sharing that, Gina. That was sweet to be with you in the moment. Yes, Deborah.
Oh, I'm just sort of feeling that energy coming through me of these memories coming up, and the sweet ones. And yes, I also have many sweet ones, and I also don't know which one to choose. And then I was actually remembering when I was in Munich one time, and we were a huge group of people helping and supporting Marshall. And there were 600 people showing up for this workshop. And I remember at the end, we were sort of cleaning up, and there Marshall was sitting on the stage with his feet dangling over the side, and he sort of flipped over this little book and brought out his little pencil. And I just noticed, and he said, "Oh, Deborah, how long have we known each other? How long have you been coming to all these workshops?" And I go, "Oh, quite a few years. I think it's 10 years now, Marshall." He said, "Oh, I think that's about time I put you in my book as a person that I have seen so often and so much appreciate how you just are there." And then, so I said, "Yeah." So he said, "Yeah, well, I kind of get myself into trouble if I don't notice people who are just there and are supporting, and they sort of just come and go." And I said, "Yeah, well, thank you for that. I really appreciate that." And then the following year, I got a call to say, "Would you come and be a trainer at the IIT with Marshall in Switzerland?" And I said, "Oh, well, that's unusual. How come he's actually sort of knew that, I asked me?" And then he found out, he said he'd written it in his book and he put it on the list. And I was so touched about that. And it was sort of his acknowledgement. And I went to Switzerland and was with him as a team. I had no idea how it was going to be. And I said, "Marshall, how's this going to be? Me coming as a trainer." And he said, "Oh, you'll work it out. You'll just be fine. Just keep asking." And it was so easy to be in a team with him. And of course, I was with Klaus. And I just remember that it was just always easy being around Marshall. I had, you know, could walk with him. I could share things. He would share things, and I would ask him, you know, Marshall, I want to set up get some buddies in Austria, and how would I go about it? And he just said, ask, and you'll find out what's serving you. And those words still live with me. What's ever serving with you, what's making sense, and what is play. And yeah, they just live in me. Those many things that he had said. So I just, yeah, warm thinking about them. Yeah, that's me for now.
Thank you, Deborah. Warming at the same warmth. Thank you. And Shauna.
Yeah, I'm reflecting on memory, and I keep coming back to the first memory I have of seeing him. So it feels like that's wanting to be spoken about. I was on my first training, which was an IIT in Switzerland, February 2004. And I had gone similar to what you were saying, Robert, in the sense of, you know, I'm a psychologist, you know, what is this guy going to teach me? And similar to what Frank said about, oh, well, I'm not going to give myself up. I'm not going to give my house away, although I did borrow some money on my house to go. And the other thing that was really important to me before I went was, I don't want to sound strange. I don't want to be like these NVC people speaking in this strange way. And I don't want to lose my sense of humor, because this has always been important to me. So I had the sense that I went kind of guarded, and I was looking out of the window in the room we were staying in, and Marshall was living in the little cottage, in the lodge house in the little cottage, and he walked up the driveway in the snow. It was white, all white, and he had this kind of funny looking coat on and this bashed up guitar case. And there was something about the way he was walking that my whole system relaxed and went, oh, this is going to be funny. And there's something about the way that he was holding himself, and even through all the tears and the ups and downs of 9 days of an IIT, there was a lightness of something that he held as well. Of the kind of cosmic joke that we're all involved in, that I really, really appreciated, and doesn't come through so often, about how funny he was, and sharp, super sharp and funny, and I just love that.
Thank you. Thank you for the sharing, Shauna. Thank you for everybody's sharing. That was very, very sweet to connect to all the levels of, yeah. So I will hand over to Lekre from here.
Yeah, thank you. I am very, very touched by your stories. And I'm wondering if you want to share what are you most grateful for that was inspired by Marshall. If you want to share something.
So to start from Romania again?
Yeah, I'd like to share, because there's the very first time I heard Marshall speaking, he said something that has stayed with me ever since, and it was just one very short phrase, and it was, we're very good at raising nice dead people. And he spoke in lots of analogy and metaphor, And this metaphor stayed with me because it really struck me very deep. I saw myself in that moment as a nice, dead person. So my mission since then, since 2001, has been to reconnect myself to my aliveness, to become alive, not dead. And I think I'm still nice, but I hope I've developed a niceness that's not only about being obedient and being liked, it's serving me in different ways.
Yes, I'll go next. I don't think there's an aspect of my life that nonviolent communication hasn't touched and transformed deeply. But what I would like to mention now is that inspired in me a true passion for compassionate parenting. I remember reading, not being a mother, so before I had my daughter, reading Raising Children Compassionately, and I was in awe. It was so different than anything I have ever experienced, first of all, as a child, anything I had ever heard of. And then he, at the end of his books, he recommended reading Alfie Cohen's Punished by Rewards. And again, that was such a mind-blowing, it was like opening a window into a totally different universe of possibilities. So the thing that I'm most grateful for is that our whole family is kind of infused with NVC. And our daughter has Marshall to thank for the fact that she has never been spanked or sent to her room or humiliated in any way. Even when she broke my giraffe during a tantrum when she was 2, she just smashed it against the floor. And yeah, so this for me is I think his most precious gift, this window into what humanity could look like if we start raising children with respect and compassion.
Yeah, I'm going to go with one that came to me when I looked at the question is the thing I'm most grateful for, I think, is the ability to transform judgments of myself and of others. And I remember when I came back from my first IIT as a participant, going into meetings with the people I worked with then. And I came out of the first meeting and I thought, that was different. What was going on? I feel very different. I felt much more relaxed. The meeting had a bit different atmosphere. What was going on? And then I realized that I hadn't spent the entire meeting judging either them or me, which is what I had tended to do up until that point. And so for me, you know, that's a really essential skill that is, yeah, that transforms my life.
I'm happy to go next. I think there are two things that touched me most. One thing was watching him and experiencing when he stepped into a healing process, that he really stepped into the other person, and he was the other person. And I remember there was one situation where a woman was talking about her experiences in her childhood, and that was really, really bad, really traumatic. And he didn't step into the fault game. He didn't step into the apologizing or explaining or something. He really kept on listening, and he felt the pain and he explained this pain. And that was such a healing moment, and that really touched me. And the other thing is that what always touched me was, this humanity I saw in him. He was, I saw him very often like this, not really the giraffe in every situation, speaking in 4 steps all the time and using the right words and being empathic. He was quite human, and whenever he expressed his anger, he expressed everything, and it was alive, and and having a human being in front of me is a chance for me to connect with somebody, and gives me hope that I can learn and kind of follow him in this way. So that was really touching.
So for me, I was in Budapest on IIT 2004, something like that. And as I mentioned earlier, that the girls were small, and I was, confused with my parenting, and so. And I remember that there was something was working inside of my head, and I was trying to fix that problem to arrange my world again from what I heard in the seminar. So in the pause, I walked up to him and I asked him some question, and then he looked at me and he said, "Are you a mother?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Remember this, if you think that there is something like a good or a bad mother, then you are in hell." And then he walked away. And it took me about, I don't know, 2 to 3 years to really understand what he meant by that. But I'm very, very grateful that I more and more walked away from that idea. So.
I will share something that's really stayed with me. Of the many things, like you said, Mona, there's no aspect of my life which isn't transformed in some way, but there's a memory I have of sitting in a circle. So at the end of the day, sitting in a circle, we were harvesting the day, and I'm pretty sure that Penny Vine was there. So Mona knows Penny, and she's been in my thoughts as we've been together here, because I know of her love for you and Romania and the community there. So I think that's why this memory is here. So Penny and I were probably sat together and very curious about when someone suggested standing up in a circle and holding hands. And Marshall didn't do it. He didn't stand up and in the circle. And it produced all sorts of commotion. You know, the person who suggested it was full of shame, and there was more to process and unpack. And what I took away from that, and was really clear, a real clear piece of learning that I received from Marshall in that moment, was that it was much more important that I really check in myself. Am I in integrity, rather than following a crowd, and the dangers for us as human beings of blindly following just because everybody else is doing. And it was such the socially acceptable thing to do, to stand in a circle and hold hands, because that was the mood of the moment. And yet the strength it requires to say, actually, I just want to check that isn't for me at this moment. And so that's very moving for me still, to remember that moment, and something I carry very closely with me. Thank you.
I'd like to go next, maybe because I was in this circle also, and I was inspired by the very same thing, and also I had a kind of the same learning that stayed with me, and I'm still learning that how to not go along, not to be nice necessarily and go along, but to check with myself and be honest and authentic. And there was, and also Mona reminded me of an extremely important learning I got in terms of parenting. I had 2 kids then, and I would say I was quite a, an okay father with my knowledge as a psychotherapist. I knew what the main pitfalls were, so I think I was doing quite a good job. But then at this IIT, I don't know what exactly we were doing, but I remember I just got it. I was just hit with this realization how far I was, or I had been, from really welcoming and appreciating the beauty of my kids, to really inviting them to bring themselves fully and to see them beautiful and so forth. And I was just hit by that. And I remember it would probably just be a small maybe insight, but I was kind of quiet, and the first tear came down. It was like a room full of people, and Marshall got it. So suddenly he stopped whatever he was talking about, and he started to empathize with me, and I was crying and crying, and with this image of, that when I'm crying, I'm ugly. So I was kind of hiding my face, and then finally when I lifted my face, I was just sobbing. He was there. It felt like a tunnel of connection. And he was there, and he had this most ridiculous kind of a giraffe hat on his. It was this kind of a really tall, fluffy, and too small for his head. So it was the most ridiculous thing ever, and at the same time it made complete sense. I still remember that somehow it made sense. It was completely perfect. It was, I guess, having this empathy and this cosmic joke color to it. So that's, and maybe just one other thing that I want to, and yeah, that utterly transformed my parenting from then on. And maybe one more thing that I want to say, it's on the same note. Like I said before, I had been a trainer for almost 20 years beforehand. And one thing that was very kind of a normal part of my trainings was that there would always be 1 or 2 people in the audience who would be skeptical, and then they would raise their hands and they would go with but, and then I would go with but, and it was this kind of a but for some time. It was just a nightmare, and I started to scan people and avoid them and just be afraid that another person like this will speak up and stuff like that. And through NVC and through observing Marshall, I just realized, hey, they are not enemies. They are humans trying to meet their needs. Maybe I can just connect to them. Maybe I can just empathize. And my trainings afterwards, when I kind of internalized that, it was like as if somebody took 90% of struggle out. It was just, I was just forever grateful just for this element, that it is possible to connect with a person who is doing something that initially I don't like them to do. But if I connect with them, wow, the whole world can quickly transform. So there is so much gratitude in me for having learned that from him.
Just giving a space first before I speak. Yeah. Many things I'm grateful for Marshall. What comes to me right to my mind right now is that moment when I was so excited when I got to know about Marshall and his work, and I went home to my parents and they wouldn't listen to what I was talking about. So I said, right, I'm going to put this cassette on and you're going to sit and listen to it because this guy has something to say. And then they listened to it, and I couldn't believe what happened. Afterwards, my father stood up from the table and said, I have a need. And we were all sort of quiet and listened. He said, yes, I need some peace and quiet now, and I'm going up to my office. And from that moment on, my relationship with my dad, who's no longer here, he passed away last year, it changed. And he said, Deborah, if you're passionate about this work that Marshall Rosenberg's doing, go for it, because I want also peace in the world. And that was just the moment. I'm still grateful for this very moment about needs, how that was changing our relationship.
I'm very touched by your story again. I'm very honored having you here and very grateful. And I'm inviting you to, in the closing this event, as I heard Robert saying, see me beautiful. I'm inviting you all to hear a very dear song of Marshall Rosenberg. So goodbye and see you again.
See me beautiful, look for the best in me. That's what I really am, and all I wanna be. It may take some time, it may be hard to find, but see me beautiful. See me beautiful each and every day. Could you take a chance? Could you find a way to see me shining through in everything I do, and see me beautiful?
Thank you all.